Hello everyone, Memory here. Recently, the official 3.15 Expedition League trailer and the patch notes has been released. And yes, I'm a bit upset because of the huge incoming nerf hammer. However, so far I'm actually okay with most of them, except one. And that is, triggered skill now cost mana, and potentially more than they originally cost. See, for the past week or so I have been working on making a new potential league starter for next league. And the rough version of the build is what you're currently looking at on the screen. And you guessed it, it revolves around triggered skills. I have several iterations of the build, done multiple tests, and refined on it many times. It uses mostly junk and there are only a few quote-unquote high-priced items which are around 30 chaos each. It can comfortably do tier 14 maps, so it's definitely a qualified league starter. But not anymore, because this build uses 5 triggered skills. I've calculated the rough mana usage per second if all the skills cost mana, and it turns out to be around 620 mana per second. Then I look at the mana region on this character and it says 43.7 per second. Yeah, so if all the triggered skill now cost their original mana, then this build is absolutely out of the window. So I guess before I dismantle my character, I might as well put it on a video to show that it actually exists. I'm not gonna explain the details about it because it's not gonna be relevant, unless of course when the patch is live and I can somehow find a way to solve the mana issue, then I will make a video on this build. Anywho, other than that nerf, so far I'm actually feeling not too bad about the other nerfs because they all seems to have somewhat decent chance to have other ways to go around it. The most important thing I care about is having fun in this game. If these changes are going to somehow make the game more fun, then I'm all for it. But if the nerf makes the game too difficult so that everyone has to spend more time on grinding for resources, then that's when I'll be actually mad about those nerfs. Now, speaking of fun, having new contents are always fun. Shaking things up means you have to go and discover new ways of playing the game, so it keeps the game fresh whether it's a nerf or a buff. Here are some of my thoughts about the 3.15 patch changes that we received so far. I'll focus more on the things that I'm currently interested only, so it won't be too long of a video. First, the new league mechanics. The whole idea of going into new places and blow things up seems okay for me, as long as the rewards are actually decent. Now, there are a couple of new exclusive things to be obtained through the new league mechanic. Out of them all, the new ward defensive system is one of the things that piques my interest, because they are made to buff the dodge and evasion builds. Dodge and evasion builds are naturally inferior to other types of defensive systems since they rely on RNG, so they are less consistent and will die more often compared to others. From what I understand, how the ward system works is once you take a hit, it will use it as your effective life pool, but only for that single hit, and then it will disable itself until 5 seconds later. That means if you can somehow build your dodge and evasion up so that you roughly take 1 hit every 5 or more seconds, then you can just view it as your extra life. It seems to be a decent way to buff evasion builds without buffing other defensive systems too much. Next up is the new skill gems. The first one that caught my eyes is the Earthbreaker support, where it combines 2 types of skill that I don't like into something that actually have some appeal to me. I do have some fun build ideas around it, so it might be one of my builds in the next league. Next one is the Storm Rain. This skill looks like a decent league starter to me. It could be the next Toxic Rain because of the similar playstyle if the damage number on the skill turns out to be decent. And then we have the Focus Ballista support. This is currently my number one want to try skill. The build uses totem, which means there will be something that's soaking damage for me, and it sounds very powerful as a single target damage build because it seems to make the ballista totem to have the same attack speed as you, and it will target whatever your main skill targets, which essentially combines 2 6-link skill into 1 single button press. But because of that, GGG probably won't give it too much damage, so it has a high chance to be underwhelming. But if the damage number looks decent, then I'll definitely make a build using this support. As for the explosive concoction skill, it does looks interesting and it does sound like a powerful boss killer with unleash and chain if the skill can chain like rolling magma. However, so far I'm still not sold for the idea of having one less equipment. This skill is a weird release to me because they nerfed most of the flask in this patch. They also tell us a whole bunch of uniques that has unarmed interaction does not work with this skill. Also, some of the Pathfinder ascendancy regards to flasks, and some of the flask cluster jewels receive some nerfs as well. So you probably don't want to build around this skill. And if you do like it, at least don't do it as a league starter. Next skill I think that's interesting is the Summon Reaper skill. From what I've seen, this skill is well received from many people. The player has more direct control over the minion and it feels more impactful to kill the enemy with it. To me, it looks like it has many potentials to be a fun skill to build around. But again, because of that, it has a higher chance of being underwhelming when it comes out. We don't know what it can and cannot do yet until we can actually play with it. So we'll have to wait and see how good it actually is when it comes out. The Forbidden Rite is another skill that appeals to me a lot. It looks like a chaos homing missile that also does chaos damage to you. And because it has a downside, so there are more chance of it to have high damage. If the damage does turn out to be great, then I'll definitely make a build based on this skill. And that's all of the new gems that piqued my interests. I might just pick one of them and use it as my league starter since my original idea has been gutted. Now, despite heavy nerfs across the board, my other build, the auto-aiming machine gun, seems to be buffed as a result of this patch, at least compared to other builds anyways. Most of the mechanics I use on that build is not nerfed, and Barrage even received a 15% damage buff. On top of that, because it is a dodge and evasion build, it can benefit from the new WAD defensive system. So I might revisit the build when I'm mostly done playing around with the new gems. If the build ends up being something worth talking about, then I'll make an update video on that build. Anyways, that's it for today. Subscribe for extra mirror drop chance. Hopefully you enjoyed it, and I'll see you in the next video. Peace.